To start talking with ChatMats. So let's start talking immediately. Welcome. So I want everybody to talk to each other about what you want to accomplish today. Don't talk to me, talk to each other. Shout across the room if you have to.
In today's workshop or in
Just right now. What do you want to do?
It's interesting, but I have no idea what these advantages and well, I come from a background of school, LLC supervisor. This is our very first speaker series, so I just want to make sure that the speaker series goes well. Also learn about some of the tools that the instructors use in their classrooms. Find out what ChatMats are.
Or other teachers. You can see other examples, see other languages. Want to know how that works for Chinese. So we actually started a project with our Chinese student. I don't know if you know our course. She is a high school teacher in high school intervention.
Yeah, so you can learn about ChatMats? Perfect. So our warm-up question is, what do you want to accomplish? Are you already using ChatMats?
Yeah, I tried using them.
All right, so just in the interest of time a little bit, because I want to give everybody time to work today on their own ChatMats and gabbling. So what did you talk about? ChatMats? Okay, so I designed this poorly on purpose. So let's talk about all the ways. This was like sort of a terrible way to start talking with each other, really. Why? Starting off with, again, a bad example to bring to the forefront things that have happened in all of our classrooms, where we think we've got this great thing planned, and we've got a topic, and we just want everybody, okay, go ahead, start, talk to each other. But we struggle with this a little bit. And it's not necessarily even because of the language. I was listening, and we did a pretty good job today, but we're all excited to be here too. So this is part of the issue. You weren't expecting this. There was no real preparation. Maybe you were coming in as like, maybe I'll get some work done on the side, but no, start talking to each other right now, go. Just jump in. And students don't really like that kind of surprise. I said no reminders were on the board screen. I did actually have a reminder there, but a lot of times we don't. Like, what are we supposed to be doing and why? And that confuses students too. Even if it's in theory what their homework was, and that's what we'll be talking about all week, in class when it's go time, people still get confused. There's no indication of how long we're going to be doing this for. I didn't give anybody any hints, like talk a lot or talk a little, or your life story of how you came to be in this classroom today. I mean, there was no idea, just very vague, what do you want to do today? There's no real incentives to talk to each other either, or deliverables. So what is somebody else thinking? Come to some kind of consensus. Write down in a Google Doc what your goal is. You're going to share with others, like in Think Very Sure. There's no reason I really gave you to talk to each other. So unless you're really dying to speak to somebody else about what you're doing here today. And most of our students are not quite so excited to talk about whatever it is we have. Let's be honest. People are tired, and there's the language barrier too that's involved. And there's more. Oh, this was terrible. There's no real conversation direction. Should you introduce yourself first? Sometimes people even need the minutiae of who speaks first. Because there's that initial confusion of you stare at somebody and you're feeling a little shy and they need a little bit of help. Like even that little bit can make a big difference. Again, no real reason to speak to each other. So what would you get out of this conversation with each other? So whatever you want out of this may not be what I want, and either way we're stuck here anyways, or it's going to be uncomfortable to leave. I mean, so there's no, again, incentive. It's also not a very good topic. Because, and this is sort of like the end of the table issue, if I'm asking you what you want out of this presentation today, I'm unprepared and will do what you want, or I don't care about what you say because it's too late to make changes. Either way, And so, and it's, when we choose topics of conversation for our students, we have to be careful that we're not hinting at something else that we don't mean to be hinting at, like I just did with all of you. And also, if you came in late, you had no idea what was going on. In all of our classes, I have people who come in late for any reason, and they're all, acceptable reasons. We don't want to shame late students. I used to do that because I'm former military, so my God, if you're not 10 minutes early, you're late, and that kind of thing. I've really come around with that idea, because we never know what's going on in people's lives. So there's no help for somebody who comes in. I did that on purpose. I'm just like, hi, but it's hard. It's hard to come in then. It makes people feel like they're not present in class, or even they shouldn't have come today at all. So all of these things, and there's even more we could talk today all about how that was terrible, but that's not really the point of what not to do. Sometimes I do think we learn more though from what not to do than we do from good examples. So this is the ultimate question. Can we expect spontaneous conversation when conversation is really a struggle in any language? This is especially true, I think, after the pandemic in so many ways. Where conversation can be a struggle, and we've lost the ability to talk to each other in many ways. I don't think it's all necessarily doom and gloom. This seems like a very specific, direct statement, but it's hard. It's hard to initiate. It's hard to make friends. It's hard to just talk to people. And we're not really great modeling conversations for the next generations. There's this whole TED Talk here. I've got a link if anybody wants it. It's about how to have a conversation. And she talks about the ways in which our nation is starting to get polarized, and how we're not listening to each other, and how we're not opening up. And that's what I mean by we're not modeling great conversations, because we ask students to talk to each other in class, but we don't actually teach people how to have a conversation in any language. So it makes it really hard, because we assume students are coming to us with that ability, and they don't necessarily. So here's another sad thing. 72% of millennials report having no friends. Our students are not necessarily millennials now, a lot of them are Gen Z, but other reports hinted even greater loneliness. This was so sad to me when I saw this. Like you mentioned, like 0 friends. This is from a pre-pandemic survey, incidentally. This is the link to the survey. I'm not making it up. And then there's another survey too that I forgot to put in here. It talks about the number for Gen Z is 32% right now, who feel like they have no friends whatsoever. Other people have interpreted that and data differently. I've been following this trend because I think this is extremely disturbing. And they say, no, it's not that they have no friends, but it's how you look at data sometimes. Because we all have acquaintances and people we talk to, but if we get in a jam, or if you're struggling with something, is there anybody we can reach out and talk to? And this is what our students are struggling with right now. So if you're feeling lonely and you're feeling self-conscious because of this loneliness that you may not even be conscious of, then how can you have a conversation in a target language then too? There's all these hidden factors I think that are going on right now. I'm seeing it in our classes more than in previous classes this semester. I haven't taken a survey of how many friends do you have or that kind of thing, or how lonely are you today. But this sort of reluctance to stand up, this reluctance to talk, this reluctance to initiate. Even before class, people sit in silence in ways that haven't happened in previous semesters. I don't want to speculate too much because I'm not a psychiatrist, but I think that this has implications for our language classrooms then. So the aha moment for me was when I was at a Christmas party. This was like 2 years ago now, and people whom I was surrounded by presumably loved me and I loved them, family members, but I couldn't think of anything to talk to them about. I just wasn't in the mood for conversation that day. I sat in the corner. This isn't my family, by the way. I just pulled this off the internet. but I come from a large family, and I just didn't want to say anything to anybody. And then I was thinking to myself, this is probably our students some days. It's not that I'm not interested in the topic or I don't love my family or whatever. I just wasn't feeling it. And so how do we help students then get into the conversation if they're not feeling it for any number of reasons that might be going on a particular day? Can we do something for everybody? So yeah, in our classrooms, again, not to beat the dead horse here, but students don't want to talk to each other in target language. And their concerns and their desires don't probably include, talking about their weekend in French or whatever their target language happens to be too. This is maybe not a stimulating topic for them. Just as maybe like, what do you want to do today wasn't super interesting for all of you first year too. So in terms of this workshop, we want to be here. At least one of us has other more pressing things to do, probably all of us. But this is our career path, and on some level, we still all want to be here. I think there's a myth that students sign up for our classes because they really want to learn a language. Sometimes they sign up for other reasons. They're not really sure why or how they got there. So there's not that any desire and passion to learn. Just feeling awkward, don't know what to ask, don't have an answer. All of this has really nothing to do with the target language many times though too. What do we do is the question. I've got a picture of bowling here because when I took Spanish many years ago in high school, they was asking like, what's your hobby? What's your hobby? They can't remember how to say that in Spanish, but I didn't know what to say and I didn't know what to do. And I'm like, I don't have any hobbies, but you can't say that. And so then the example on the wall was me gusta jugar boliche. And I still remember how to say that because I just grabbed it off the wall. That's what I said. And the Spanish teachers were like, wow, everybody really likes bowling in this class. And God bless them, I had to start like a Spanish bowling league. None of us were really interested in bowling. Okay, it was just that was what was on the board, the example. And so that's where chat mags come in. How can we bring this excitement, or at least an example, so we can get past this language sort of barrier, this initial conversation barrier to get students to start talking? And I want to say this is thanks to Bethany Carlson-Drew, who gave us a talk at Star Talk, and also I went to her presentation at the Southwest Conference on Language Teaching, and I want to give all credit to her, because I did not come up with this idea. This was somebody else's idea. And she's graciously let me speak about it to others and spread the word of how it's been transformative in her classroom and hopefully other classrooms as well. So outcomes for today, I can identify pros and cons of chat usage and create a product that will help students achieve a conversation/can-do goal. So hang in there. Not outcomes, improving accuracy, assessments, developing a new curriculum, becoming experts, any of this stuff. That's not the plan. We're just going to keep it simple just with this one language tool. So it's just, in general, challenging to create activities that advance language skills permanently in the long-term memory, advance intercultural competence, get everyone using the language, and I even get into neurotypical and atypical peoples everybody's capable of learning. So how do we get them talking? And then are used again consistently throughout the term. Because we can have a day where things go really, really well, and then 3 weeks later, because we haven't brought it up again, hobbies, for instance, everybody forgets. So I can identify, let's talk chat mats. All of this stuff is great vocabulary. Our students going to use what we teach them in class, whether it's analysis, vocabulary, grammar, etc. I think of chat mats like a dance that you do where you have the feet laid out on the floor, and you've got to follow 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's very stilted at first. And then eventually you put, you get rid of the lefts and rights and numbers. And then eventually it gets easier and easier. And you still have maybe a choreographed routine. But eventually people can just start dancing freely on their own. And conversation can be just like this if we plan it accordingly. And I really like this picture, by the way, because there's always, no matter what, still some guy just standing there doing nothing. But that's his choice, right? And so it can be like a choice to have it as opposed to like a language barrier or something else. Just, I don't feel it right now. So chat mats provide students with a conversation outline. They avoid the issues of, I don't know how to answer that question. I don't know what to ask. I don't even know how to ask a question to begin with to initiate a conversation. I don't know how to start or end a conversation. This is something I think we don't do enough of a lot of times. Or I won't talk at all. And it includes possibilities for differentiation, so people of all abilities and levels can start speaking to each other. A clear blueprint for both neurotypical and atypical students. And practice makes perfect, because it's a chat mat, it's not supposed to be a cheat sheet. So it builds up enough excitement. What is this? Is this the answer to all our loneliness? No, I may have oversold it, but at least it's a start to having a conversation, which is the start of friendships. So here's a chat mat example. This is in Arabic. I can ask someone how they're feeling, and I can say how I'm feeling. Not just how are you doing today, but really how are you feeling? Let's get into some emotions. So here we have Izayik and Izayak, like how are you? And then Ana is the response, and then here's the pictures. So it's not like a vocabulary list, which is kind of dull, but people tend to make better connections with pictures, no matter who you are. So it's like, Hazina, or whatever, or Atshan, really thirsty. Most people say Ta'ban in college classes, incidentally. And then we can level up on this side here. So this is the one that we realized in Arabic, because we want people to read from right to left, I added this arrow. because in this last one, it's hard to know where the I is supposed to go. So adding an arrow in can really help. And then I put off to like the top part of, this is the conversation initiator in some ways. And then I even added more later on, Zaden, and it's a little bit more in depth. And then people who are really great at the language or maybe can do better can add in Ashen and say why they're feeling Joanne or any other feeling. And then students who maybe aren't quite there yet can still understand that these students who are maybe studied hard are giving reasons for why they feel that way. And that can help everybody out, and everybody gets something out of that conversation then. So here's a simpler one I can do. I can meet a new person with hellos and goodbyes. So hello, this is what is your name. Hopefully the idea is that they've been introduced to all of this before, so they understand that this, like, hello, my name is, and from where are you from, that's what this means, and then masalama, goodbye. And it helps students walk through the conversation with these blanks in which they put their own information in. So name and where they're from, for instance. And there's a sense of conversation analysis in this too, and analysis of text as well. In the sense that if we have an example where students have listened to somebody having this conversation, then they can stick in their own information and see where that came from, having previously listened to it. And so I'm going to give an example here, again in the spirit of having like bad examples. Maybe not, I shouldn't say bad, not perfect examples.
أهلا وسهلا. اسمي هذر. اسمك إيه؟
اسمي عبد الله.
أهلا
وسهلا.
أنت منين؟
أنا من مدينة صنعاء في اليمن. وأنت منين؟
أنا من مدينة مينيابوليس في ولاية مينيسوتا.
أهلا وسهلا.
تشرفنا. أهلا بيك.
أهلا.
Okay, so that was our text example of having a conversation and asking where you're from. But the fun thing about, because this is when we get into the cultural analysis or intercultural competence too, because this wasn't a perfect example. Do men and women shake hands in the Middle East, for instance? We can have a conversation about that. What, Abdullah had a creepy lean in at the start of the conversation, right? That's not a normal way to start a conversation anywhere. But this was our fifth try, and we got a whole board. So, I mean, these kinds of things, we can start having these other conversations, not just about how to say ahlan wa sahlan, but everything else that starts and initiates a conversation with body language. It's also a poor quality video. They don't have to be the best videos. So if you have a chat mat that you'd like to use but don't feel like it matches exactly your textbook, you can make something that doesn't really take too long, and it doesn't have to be perfect, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because these little mistakes and errors and things that happen, students like these, as it turns out, because it shows them that they don't have to be perfect either. And again, students love creating their own bad examples. So we did this year in first year where we had students, make a cultural faux pas and have a little skit. So instead of creating these perfect conversations, and then the other students had to listen for what the bad part was, or the ways that maybe would have been interpreted differently. We don't have to qualify things as bad or good per se, but this idea of, let's have this. And then students got really interested in listening to this skit in ways that they weren't normally otherwise. Because it's not just saying, hello, how are you, where are you from? And writing down where they're from, and that gets repetitive. But it's did he go in for the handshake? Did he lean in? Was he a little too close? Was he too far? That kind of stuff. People start suddenly getting really interested. And having that conversation chat mat, just of where are you from? And then they can add in their own information too, or their own fun things. It made students get more interested in having that conversation to begin with, and actually getting to know each other too. And then it doesn't just have to be simple, it can be larger too then. So all the ways to say hello, which in Arabic is a lot. And then where are you from? What's your name? And then where are you from? How are you feeling today? What do you like doing? And so good, nice to meet you, goodbye. So you can add more and more and more as the students develop more of their language skills and repertoire. So in this chat mat, for instance, all the examples of how you're feeling are gone, but hopefully by then they've learned this vocabulary. So, pros, it avoids I'm not participating issues, differentiation, everyone can join in. People who came prepared for class, people who maybe were not prepared, neurotypical and neuroatypical. I think that this is something that I've tended to forget about in my classes in the past, but if you do have students who are, let's say, on the spectrum, they have a hard time initiating conversations or understanding the back and forth of the conversation, again, in any language. And people don't have to disclose this to you, of course, and so, but just having the chat mat in front of you can help out everybody in ways that I didn't fully appreciate, again, until an autistic student came up to me and just explained to me how helpful it was for this particular person. The cons, I said the cheat sheet issue because students can use this as a cheat sheet. I said it's a chat mat, not a cheat sheet, but people will still use it as such, and use it as a crutch almost. So you really have to wean them away from it gradually and try to get students off of it so that they can use the vocabulary on their own. And I also have the time and money issue because it takes time to make these, and it takes money to print them. I've noticed they're better if you get students up out of their seats and walking around the classroom. You can have it, displayed, but it's just, students like making their own notes and they like having that piece of paper. But again, I feel guilty about the forced side murder. So it's better if you print it in color. We don't have the money for that. I mean, so this is, I think, a con to this too. Almost no getting around it though. So anyways, before we do make our own now, I wanted to ask if anybody had any questions. Yeah.
Do you only use images?
I only use images, although for the large, like when you get up to the intermediate levels, you can use sentence connectors. And you don't have to use images anymore for there. So when we get a little bit more complicated, instead of just overwhelming students with vocabulary, you can, by the same token, or I feel, or I thought that, ... but now I think ... and this kind of thing too. So it doesn't always have to be images. I just said that it does, and then I realized, no, it's not. So depends on what you're trying to do, the statement is, and what the goal is, really. I'm personally struggling with intermediate chat mats and trying to figure out ways to incorporate it in some of the more nuanced, more challenging conversations.
Yeah, because I'm teaching French too,
Mhm.
and so I use this for the first time last time for the debate to have expression to say like, oh, I don't agree, or you're wrong. It's kind of like sentences that they wouldn't use.
Mm-hmm.
I just put like, I offer them a few, but most of the words they know them. They just like don't know how to make the sentence or like how to use it. So I didn't use images because I wasn't sure how to make an image for you're wrong.
I could think of a couple, but we can film that. I don't want to get too political. So, in any case, no, I think the important thing to chat mats is like instead of just having a list of phrases, like have places where students can add in their own information. Like you're wrong about blank. You're wrong because blank. I don't agree because blank. Have you considered blank? You forgot blank. So something to make it so that they're not just reading off of a list, but really adding in their own. I contacted Bethany Carlson Drew recently, just because she went over this and I just haven't used it, so I kind of forgot. Because everything is a depreciable skill just about. So hoping to get more information about that, and when I do, I'm happy to share with everybody. Any other questions or comments or concerns or thoughts they want to share right now? We're slated for an hour, so my plan right now is to really something we're all short on as instructors and just humans alive right now is time. So I wanted to give everybody the chance to create one. So I've got, if you give me your email, I can add you to this Google Drive that I've got here. So ChatMats LLC. I put up something here just as helpful links because this is something that I haven't been so great at in my life is using images that are available under Creative Commons and aren't copyrighted. It saves a lot of headache, even if you think we're just going to use this for this classroom, it doesn't really matter. You use the Creative Commons, really, and use some good websites. Emojipedia, Pixabay, there's Search Creative Commons, Old Search. All of these can lead us to some. And it's right here in this chat mats. Here's some example ones, not saying that they're perfect. That's not my intention, but just sometimes it's nice to see, again, examples, the good, the bad, and the ugly, to get some ideas. And I've got a blank one in here too, if you want to just make a copy of it and then repurpose it. You might want to flip the arrow around, I suppose. Or here's a blank thing as an example, and different blocks that you can choose. And then for the level up differentiation stuff, you can put it also on the side. so that students can have some extra stuff off on the side to use for those who are there. So I'll go around here right now and I'll just add everybody to this Google Drive if you think it's helpful. And then you can start working on your own chat nets, and I'll be here to help and support if you're interested. I should have gone. Here's the link, and then we're using the editor. I'll copy the link and I'll send it out in an email. Okay. Okay, so you're ready to get? Perfect. Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. I got it. Okay, thank you so much. Okay. Perfect. Emma, I know yours, and I think Mom, I have yours too. Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to email everybody the link right now. And then, yeah, so please take this time to create one for yourself or your own classroom. If you want to, I feel like I'm so tired I take a leave right now. I understand that too. But I'm here to help if you have any questions and about using them, or if you're creating one, you realize you have another question that you didn't think of earlier, but now it's come up. When you see it in the classroom, my strong advice again is to put it in multiple places. So post a place on Learn when you have like all the chat nets from the semester, and then also print it out the day you're using it and hand it out to students, because that's really helps too. Even if students have their computers, everybody's exhausted staring at screens all day long, so it's nice just to get away from that and be present in the conversation in ways that sometimes screens don't allow us to. Some students will still use their screens and that's fine, but it's nice to have that variety and option available. Talking about some music. This was a selection of music that was curated last year by the advanced Arabic students, if you're wondering where I got this music from. What amazing. I think you'd like to listen to it, so.
Heather, can you also add your presentation today into that folder?
Yeah, sure.
Because I was thinking when we do take a video, we could, interpose your slides and the videos so people can see what you're trying to do.
Oh, sure.
I did, so my classes are organized differently. So we choose a side of you. So now I think we choose the so first is the grade. We'll have what it has to do, and we'll prepare the exhibition. Like we'll do, yeah, so they have to go together.
So these are the instructions you get.
Yeah, the instructions are hard. Yeah, because they all have different activities. So
So I have this level up here, but that's only because I couldn't think of a way to say that in Arabic properly. It's probably better if you had it like in French or Japanese or whatever, leveling up in language.
All right, actually great.
Oh, really?
But most of the time I didn't
Well, that's so awesome. That's great. That's probably a good word.
It's just so much in Arabic and at home use them as home.
That's true. That's not helpful.
It's just, I did a follow time for this one, like for all the activities, but most of them have something.
So for each module, you serve a different way to
I did all these
I believe I can list that.
I think so,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was like research
Reminds
and
people,
like
oh, this is the structure, or this is the
Like
correct
this kind of
order
writing.
to choose your patterns.
Chinese is
Left, right, yes.
Yeah, so it would make more sense to like probably have all of this over on the outside, like something that sets the natural way to.
Yeah, I'm thinking about like maybe call about box and like box audience and things like that.
Well, that's a good
So that
idea.
you know that I like this and you can choose from that.
Yeah, that's a good
I'm
idea.
thinking about that. Because this way, it's already good, but
that's why it's always
they get excited and start speaking, they not necessarily use full sentence.
the module phrase.
Correct structures. And this is, simple structure is okay, but in Chinese when we do kind of place words, word order is very different from English. So I think in that way,
Yeah,
it
so
can remind people to use correct words.
Yeah, using the arrows to point to other things goes hard and something helpful for sure. Although sometimes these simpler ones, it's almost obvious because what else could go there? You know, 'cause we only have like these options, so.
Right.
I'll go into.
But I think sometimes it gets a little bit more complex and then it's harder. Oh, I'm so excited she's doing it. Has it been good in her class, do you know?
I'm sorry?
Has it been good, like, for her class, do you know? She like used them in her classroom?
They just start this project with our Chinese
They have to make sure they don't go
language
there.
to Mexico, like our Chinese school. And
that's why
she really
all that
wants
is,
to
like,
collaborate
listening
with
to else
everybody
is
and
another
really
thing to
contribute a little bit and so that everybody can have a lot.
That'd be
So,
amazing.
So I guess
we
this is,
just started.
yeah, I guess you could consider this kind of chat.
She used your template to model for
I think
Chinese.
this is first.
That's amazing.
It's like how people make
How
it.
you do.
These would be hard to illustrate, I guess.
Yeah, because it's funny,
And
like,
also,
I just,
you
but
know,
then in
the
category,
members
this way
of
they know that
council,
you can
they
edit
are
from
really
the
interested in this area when they introduce this to us. And some of them, like you mentioned, can we have a working professional development session? Just get together and create checklists. I think it's a great idea.
I think it's a good idea too, because especially we said templates with pictures, because it takes a while to find the pictures and stuff.
Exactly, and we copyright issues. We don't know which picture we could use, or we could like violate copyright.
But sometimes, especially with some words.
Last week, we had the board meeting with board members. So we talked about
it's like,
host
oh,
another
if I
virtual
want them
winter
to make
workshop.
conversation.
Like
If it's not that, then I know that they can actually add stuff, it's not just say, I write fruits, they'll say, oh, I prefer fruits.
winter workshop. And
It's possible, but it doesn't like fruits, yeah. And here was a debate, so I wanted them
to do this session.
like act like
We're
a
living in Mexico.
big debate, everybody's saying about.